and welcome to Nothing But a Podcast with me, your host, Giles Thomas, here at the On Rise Media Studio. And we're joined, of course, by 8-time Mr. Olympia, Ronnie Coleman. But we have a very special guest for this episode of Nothing But a Podcast, Jay CUTLER, 4-time Mr. Olympia. Jay, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, what's going on, guys? Good to be back on and see you guys.
Ronnie, are we making history here? Have we ever had you two together on a podcast before?
Nope, never.
So this is the first time?
Yep, this first time.
Jay, why has this never happened before? Tell us.
Ronnie never invited me, man.
Yeah, and Jay never invited me either.
Well, here we are.
Lot of history between myself and Ron, and although things didn't always go exactly the way that I thought they would, it was a huge impact on the bodybuilding community when we were battling it out there for 10 years.
So you turned pro before Ronnie. Sorry. No, I'm talking. No, completely the other way around. Sorry. So, I mean, the first Olympia you did together was 99, but that wasn't the first time you competed against each other, was it?
Yeah, it was the first time. No, 98 Night of Champions was my first pro show, and Ronnie won that contest. 1998.
Yep.
So I finished 11th at that show, and that's when Ronnie kind of started on his victory string of victories. He won the Night of Champions and then went to that Olympia in Madison Square Garden at the end of 98 and won his first. And he beat out the likes of all the guys that have been beaten those years prior. But that was my first time standing on stage with Ronnie before he became Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Yep. And then the 99 Olympia, that was when you kind of, the 2000 Olympia, that's when you really started. You went up from 13th to 8th, and you really started to hit your stride, wasn't it, Jay?
Yeah. You know what was kind of unique? I won the Night of Champions in 2000. That was my first victory. And I qualified for the Olympia. I placed 8th that year, and very fortunately, we were able to go on tour after that Olympia, and it was limited to Ronnie and myself were really the only top 10 placing guys that competed in that. So I was able to finish second to him, and that's when I really got a chance to stand next to Ronnie, and then, of course, took the whole year off. And then 2001 it started the string of second places to Ronnie until, eventually I won in 06.
So, I mean, most people think, those fans think that the first time that you really kind of were neck and neck was at the 2001 Olympia, but it wasn't, was it? It was in Manchester at the 2000 British Grand Prix. It was this one.
Is that what you had that ready, Giles? Huh?
Yeah. No, I had this. I took this in 2000 in Manchester. And I remember because Kerry Kay said to me, he said, Giles, he says, Jay's took a big step up. He's dropped 14 pounds from the Olympia. That's what he said. And he said he looks sensational. I think he's gonna play second to Ronnie.
Yeah, well, I didn't have as much competition as the years past, and that was a big honor for me. Ronnie, I don't know if you remember, but you called me when I won the Night of Champions. It was Night of Champions, New York Pro now. And Ronnie told me after prejudging I won, which was a big relief for me. And back then we weren't sure who won really till the show was decided at night. So after the morning prejudging, Ronnie called me and said, "Congratulations!" So for me to get a call from, Mr. Olympia that, hey, you won this show, it was a huge honor for me. So, Ronnie was my idol. And you always say you want to compete against your idols and beat your idols, but it was a long road for me and built a lot of history in this business.
I remember that show.
You remember? Yeah. You called me?
Yeah, I remember calling you. Yeah.
So what you basically said, you've won it, Jay.
Yeah, he told me I won it, and I didn't imagine a year later I'd be standing on 1-2 position with him at the Olympia, because he was getting on a roll then. There were a lot of guys ahead of me at that point. When I won the Night of Champions, I beat a guy like Paul Dillette, who was another guy that I thought was out of my league at certain times, and that's when I started to move up. And of course, Ronnie never looked back at any of those guys. He never really was threatened too much. So he was kind of in a class of his own. I think he's probably the most influential Mr. Olympia winner by, pretty much clear victories of any of the champions, especially with a reign of 8.
So, Ronnie, when did you, was it obviously the 2001 Olympia, was it when you were both called out in the first call-out that you realised that Jay had really kind of took a step up in his size and conditioning?
Yeah, well, it's kind of hard to see what's really going on with other guys while you're up there on stage, because you're so focused on what you're doing. It's so much going on in your mind about, hitting the right pose and doing the right thing. And there's just so much you got to focus on. You really don't pay attention to nobody else. I'm quite sure it's the same thing for Jay too, because there's a lot going on in your mind when you're up there on stage, about what you're doing and how you're doing it, and are you doing this right? Are you doing that right? Are you hitting this pose right? Hitting that pose right? You're so focused on that you don't really think about competition.
Plus, you weren't feeling too good on that day at the 2001 Olympia at the pre-judging, were you?
No. Boy, by the time I got to the stage, I was okay.
Okay.
I woke up that morning, I was dying. At least I thought I was anyway.
And then Chad told you to drink some water, didn't he?
Yeah, I was on my way to the hospital, and he told me to drink some water, and I drank a gallon. And then I felt a lot better. So after I drank a gallon of water, of course, I felt, a lot better. But it's hard to see, the bodybuilding contest holding a gallon of water the morning of the show. So, of course, I didn't look too good, but, I recovered, after prejudging and went on and won the show. But, I was in bad shape the morning of the show, real bad shape.
So, Jay, what was that like, really kind of getting standing right next to someone that you previously really looked up to?
Listen, it was incredible. And my luck was that Ronnie and I drew numbers consecutively. So when Ronnie, I think he drew number 1 and I was number 2 at the time. So for me to be able to stand in the lineup next to Ronnie, it was a great opportunity to showcase what I had brought. And listen, at the time, I mean, I was still fresh, and I never expected. I thought I looked great, but I wasn't sure the calls I was going to get. You don't think you're going to move from 8th to winning the contest or even being in contention when you have so much respect for the other athletes there that have been there years prior. So when I leapfrog all those guys and they brought me and Ronnie out for the final call and prejudging the top 2, I was like really, really fired up. And at that point, my confidence was all-time high, where I thought, okay, I have a great shot here because the crowd response was there. And that's when it was in Mandalay Bay. And I think Ronnie would agree. Those were the greatest memories because, to have the Olympia in, I didn't compete in Madison Square Garden the first year, but Olympia moved to Vegas in '99, and I competed in the first one and then was in the second one. By 2001, it was our third Olympia in Las Vegas, and he was already a 3-time winner. 98, 99, 2000. Yeah, he was already going into his 4th win. So it was an honor to be there. So the whole scene was just incredible, and to stand next to the best bodybuilder in the world. At the time, we didn't realize how important his reign would be, tying the record with Haney. But it was an incredible night.
So what shots do you feel? Because I was at that Olympia. The 2001. And I think some of the front shots, because Ronnie was holding a bit of water at the pre-judging. I think you had a couple of front shots, but then obviously at the back shots, Ronnie, clearly took them. What was your thoughts on how evenly matched you were at that show?
Yeah, I think, listen, Ronnie was bigger. There's no question. He was definitely more matured. And, he was Mr. Olympia. So, I just had a lot of detail that I hadn't had before. My shoulder width is always great. But, from the front, I was pretty dominant in the abs and the thighs. And, where I felt he was a little washed out. And, to correct Ronnie, he didn't look bad. He just, he wasn't at his all-time best that he had been in the past. And I think that's where, someone comes in and people notice that improvement, the eyes were on me just because of the improvements alone. And I did have some outstanding body parts that maybe he weren't as sharpened from the front side, but there's no question. I battled my whole career to fight Ronnie from the backside. I don't think anyone's ever been that dominant from the back still to this day. So for me, it was just about, showcasing what I could to really, show what flaws he might have had at that front position.
So Ronnie, were you relieved that you kind of tightened up for the night show?
Oh yeah. Very much so. But I was always confident, because like Jason had said, I had already won 3. So I was just going about it as business as usual. It was just bad that I had that episode that morning where I pretty much dehydrated, like totally too dehydrated to the point where I couldn't get out of bed. So it was mostly a thing of me just recovering that whole process. So to overcome all of that and come out and win, it was a major upset for me, because in my mind, I was going to the hospital that morning. I didn't give a damn about no show. I was thinking about trying to stay alive at that point. So the show was it was like second fiddle. I wasn't worried about the show. I was worried about my life for the most part.
Yeah.
But to come on and go to go from that to winning the show, was a huge victory for me.
That's crazy to think that he came so close to not even doing the show, AJ.
Yeah.
Well, listen, if he didn't show, history wouldn't have been made. And guys, remember this was I believe in October, and it was 6 weeks prior to that the 9/11 tragedy happened. Yeah. So I know there was a lot of speculation that Vegas was under high alert, and we weren't sure if the show was even going to take place leading up. And I know Ronnie celebrated the victory. You've pulled the flag that year, Ronnie, out of the posing trunks and all that.
Yeah.
And we kind of were. It was a big celebration for that too, because we were unsure of what the event would become, and they were able to pull it off, and we were all just happy to be there. So I'm sure between his episode in the morning and the show taking place after the uncertainty around the world, it was something that we respected a lot.
Crazy to think the Olympia might not have happened. It was like the Olympia last year, with the whole COVID situation. It's crazy. Well, the show went on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So always persevere somehow or another.
Jay, one thing I've always wanted to ask you, do you regret not doing the 2002 with Mr. Olympia? It's easy for me now, 19 years later to say, yeah, I regret it. But listen, too many variables. At the time I was moving and it was never I lost the 2001 and I feel I should have won, that people might think it is. I moved to Vegas. I built a home after I won the Arnold in 2002, and I was in the midst of trying to settle in a new place. And, I had just signed a pretty solid endorsement deal with a company, and I was doing the real estate stuff. So for me, it just made more financial sense to focus on business. And I had just won the Arnold, and I said, you know what, I'm still riding high. So I didn't compete. Ronnie still won that year, but he wasn't as big as he had been in the past, which might have been an advantage to me. But listen, we don't know how I would have showed up. So I do regret it when that maybe the opportunity was there. But at the same time, Giles, I'm thankful for the second place and the battles and the hunger that it made me into a better person. I don't want to get too far ahead, but without Ronnie Coleman there as someone I was battling, I never would have been as successful nor as excited about the business that him and I, because it goes way beyond the stage with Ronnie and I. We travel to guest posings every week. They love to book us together, and we had a lot of fun training in the gym and spending time eating together and laughing, and there was a lot of great memories. And looking back now, it's like those were the best years of my bodybuilding career. Ronnie stepped away. It wasn't as fun for me.
So who's got the most Hummers and Escalades?
Me?
No, Ronnie won two Escalades, I think, and one Hummer. I won 3 Hummers and no Escalades.
Yeah.
How many did you win, Ron? Escalades? 2?
2. Yeah,
but he won the 8th one. He got the granddaddy Hummer, man. He got the big one,
The big yellow one.
I got the big... Yeah. The big bad one.
So what did you do with them? I assume you kept one of each, and just sold the rest, or?
Yeah, I just kept the Hummer. I already had an Escalade at the time I won both the Escalades, so I sold both of those.
What about you, Jay?
I sold mine. I bought property, and Ronnie and I transitioned. I don't think any 2 guys in bodybuilding have as many cars as Ronnie and I had over our career.
No, I've had quite a few. I'm a car guy.
Ronnie and I have had about 100 cars between the 2 of us.
Yeah, exactly.
What was your favorite, guys?
My favorite's been the Rolls Royce, I guess. I still got mine. I've had mine almost 5 years now. It'll be 5 years in April, actually. I had a Bentley about 6 years too. That was pretty good too.
You don't get better than those English cars, Giles. You know what I'm saying?
There you go. There you go. There you go. So, did you guys ever train together when you were kind of traveling?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, all the time.
Oh, really? Tell us more.
Listen, I'll tell you the funny story about Ron. We would meet. I'm going to take the example in Pittsburgh. We would show up. We'd have the same driver that would pick us up when we guest posed. It was usually at one of our last guest postings of the year for Jim Mannion, and and I'd get there sometimes before Ronnie, and here comes Ronnie off the plane, and this guy's in tights, ready to go to the gym. And when the driver sees him now, and Ronnie's got veins popping through his tights walking through the airport, and Ronnie's first thing is he's always like, okay, we're going to go hit the gym. He was ready to train. As soon as we landed, Ronnie's like, okay, let's go train. And I'm like, damn, I just flew all the way from Vegas. But he was always ready. This guy, he would be in the gym. It didn't matter what time. I remember there were times close to midnight, and Ronnie's in the back corner of the gym. And Ronnie, I think you always did legs on Friday, and he'd be squatting 650 pounds in the corner. No matter where we were, no matter what time it was, wow. Ronnie would all those plates on there and killing legs every single time on those Fridays.
Yep.
So, Jay,
that's where it always was.
Jay, did you ever do the late night training sessions with Ronnie? Because I've trained with Ronnie and he was still going at 1 a.m.
Listen, we stayed up a lot because we'd be eating late or whatever. But I'll be honest, man, when we were doing lunges one time, and I mean, once we get up to 225, that was about my limits, and he's cranking up to 315 and doing walking lunges across the gym. It was easy for him, man. He just there's never going to be a Mr. Olympia that love to train as much as Ronnie Coleman. I can promise you that. That's one thing I can say about him. He truly loved the training aspect.
Yeah, that's right. Still to this day. Working out 6 days a week. Barely walk.
So, Jay, do you have a nice home gym like Ronnie does?
Do I what?
Do you have a nice home gym like Ronnie does?
No, man. I mean, Ronnie, I remember when he was putting that gym together and, you know, he was excited. I mean, and, you know, he was still going to the gym, but, you know, that's how much he loved to work out. I like to leave my house and escape the whole bodybuilding, you know, I like it's a whole escape, and then I go back home and that's like my sanctuary. But that just, it goes to show, and he may be the smartest one, especially during COVID, who had the home gym. And I mean, he had everything he needed in there, and you guys have seen the videos, but I don't have the setup that he has.
So what about the difference in training styles when you train together? Would one concede, or just say, okay, well, I'll do what you want to do, or what was it like training together?
Right? I followed Ronnie mostly. You know, he was pretty. You know, the amazing thing about Ronnie's training, and Ronnie, you can attest to this. We do chest on Saturdays. It's funny because we traveled a lot of weekends together. So Fridays would let. Saturday was chest, and Ronnie's chest routine was the craziest thing I ever saw, because like he did flat bench, incline or decline bench, and that was it. There wasn't anything else. Like there were no fly movements. I mean, I guess he had certain days where he switched it around, but usually on those weekends, like we literally would do flat bench, decline, and incline bench, and that was it. 3 movements.
That was it.
And I was doing a lot more volume, but I followed his routine, and I wasn't honestly a big bench presser. I mean, he came from the powerlifting background, so I mean, you saw him. I mean, he would do 600-pound bench presses pretty handily. So for me, it was just, I loved training differently, and I loved following the routine that made the best bodybuilder in the world at the time. But it seemed very basic to me. But he trained each body part twice a week, where I would only do one body part each time, each week.
Yeah.
Tell us more, Ronnie.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. That was pretty much it. I always did. I had a day that I would do barbell and a day for dumbbell. So I would do incline barbell, incline dumbbell. I mean decline and flat. It was just a day on barbell and a day on dumbbell. Those 3 exercises. I hardly ever did like like cable crossover and stuff like that, machines. It was all just free weights for the most part. Every now and then I would throw like a free weight in, a machine in, and do like cable crossovers or something like that. But for the most part, it was just those 3 movements.
So why didn't you ever do a training video together?
Oh, no, I never thought about it. Wow. Back then, training videos weren't that popular either. So nobody never really did anything together that I can remember.
So what do you think about the kids now who just film every single set on their phones? Jay?
I'll never get used to that.
Fantastic. What do you think about that, Jay?
I can tell you that when I went to the gym to train, I was so laser focused on what I was doing. I did not take a phone or check a phone. I would tell someone, if I was on a call on my way to the gym, I'd say, listen, I'm in the gym for the next hour and a half. I'll be off my phone. There was no checking the phone whatsoever. So I had 0 distractions. It was all about the gym and the task on hand. So in this era, and I'm victim of this, I do film a lot now because social media plays such a large part of it. And I'm sure Ronnie, he has people doing the same for him. But you couldn't break us. So even when I filmed those videos with Mitsuru, I really did not look forward to him being around me filming those sets and having to have that going on, because I used to just tell them, listen, don't bother me. Let me train, and you can just shoot whatever you want, but don't ask me any questions. Don't ask me to do any movements I don't want to do. This is just what it is. And that's what was great about Mitsuru. But there was nothing else that mattered to me other than my training sessions. No phones, nothing else.
Yeah, same here. Mm-hmm. I didn't do any phone calls in the gym. I didn't take a phone in the gym. I don't know. I don't even think we had cameras on the phone back then. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
I can't remember camera. If you did have one on the phone, you couldn't post it. They didn't have Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff back then.
1 megapixel phones.
Yeah.
So
it was a flip phone, you
yeah.
couldn't do much with a flip phone.
About to take this workout to another level. Let's go. About to take it to another level. Let's go.
Nowadays, nothing really excites me. Only one of me and nobody's like me. Phone ringing and I tell him it's Prix. I got wifey on blingin' she freeze. Photo. Please. No photos. G's. No. Please. No photos. Hit the door and the dome and just whole team here might need some. Still young, but I move like a new deal to my lawyer. If you're down in my management, I'm just warming up, wait till I old producer saw the numbers one. Different colors in my baggy light. Chalk it up, talk of the town when you're talking up. Wanna get you a ring and you tough enough. Wanna get you new things when your pockets dull. Run it up. I used to be quiet and out of luck. Now I move up and move humble cause the hate and the jealousy. My mama telling me count up your blessings and run it up. Nowadays nothing really excites me. Only one of me and nobody like me. Phone ringing and I tell him it's I got wifey on blingin' she freeze.